So I come across this video by Ana Kasparian called Why I Kicked a Guy Off His Bike. I suppose it was the fact that she makes reference to MRAs in her description that got the video to pop up on my suggested video feed. I watched the video, and what she basically said was she was getting flack from some MRAs because of this personal story she told on an episode of The Young Turks where some guy on a bike rode past her, slapping her on the ass really hard, and then turned his bike around and tried to do it again. So she kicked him off the bike and began stomping the guy pretty hard because she was really scared, and this dude was bigger than her, and she was afraid if she stopped kicking him he'd get up and hurt her bad, so she just freaked out and kicked the shit out of him before bolting, and some MRAs are giving her a hard time about it. So I watched the video and thought, ah well, there are just going to be MRAs who are like that, who are just chomping at the bit to scream outrage. Nothing I can do but yell. Not all MRAs are like that, so I didn't originally have anything to say. I wasn't going to comment or anything. However, I seen another video by a channel called TYT Watch that popped up in the video suggestions on the side, claiming Ana was actually changing her story, and this person showed the first two incarnations of this story. I am going to show you the two original versions of this story, the one MRAs were bitching about, and then we'll see what her new version looks like, that she tells, to try to make those MRAs look like petty zealots.
We're all having fun.
It wasn't a cat fight.
Okay.
I was power walking, and I had a lot on my mind that day too, I remember. And I was already in kind of like a bad mood, and all of a sudden, I feel this hand just smack my butt as hard as you could ever imagine, and it was like this like 15, 16-year-old boy on a bike, and he smacked my butt, and I was wearing short shorts. And I swear to you, I can't even explain how it felt. It was the worst feeling in my life. Like, I felt so violated, right? I even started tearing up. But he just drove away, right? He actually turned around and tried to do it again. I turned around and I saw him coming, and as he came closer to me, I kicked him off his bike, and I started kicking him in his ribs.
Oh, look at Ana Kasparian throwing down the beat down on this guy. I like it.
I was so enraged. I can't explain the rage inside me. And I just kept kicking him. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't you ever do that to a woman again. Oh, it was crazy.
This is Feminist Hour on the Young Turks. I like that.
I was so mad.
That's awesome. Even though I said cat fight, between two women, why is it a cat fight, right? Just calm down. Okay, but seriously, how did it end? Like, did he just kind of pick up and like, I see them and run away on the bike?
I wouldn't stop kicking him, and then finally I stopped, and then I just continued to walk away. And I don't know what happened because I didn't turn around to see what he was doing. I just walked away. And later on, I called Ladiz to tell him, and he was so mad at me. He's like,
what? Why?
He's like, what if that guy was a gang member? Very moment where this like 14-year-old rode by with his bike, and he slapped my butt, and I felt humiliated, and it was just a really terrible, violated feeling that I had. And he came back for more, and I didn't think I had it in me. I kicked him off his bike, and I started kicking him in his ribs, and I couldn't stop. And it was like this moment of rage.
That's a beatdown.
Yeah, it was this moment of rage that I had, and
now let's hear the newest version of this story.
But I wanted to share it with the audience. I had been at a park at probably not the safest time. It was still light out, but it was starting to get dark.
So it wasn't really safe. Okay, don't forget to mention that bad mood that you were in. Oh, I'm sorry. Does bringing that up ruin the frightened little girl all alone narrative you're trying to paint?
I was there by myself, and I wanted to get some exercise in before I went home and called it a day. And so I was power walking, okay, that was my exercise of choice at the time. And while I was power walking, again, I was at this park alone, and...
Good thing you pointed that out twice, otherwise we might not pick up on how scary and dangerous this was, and how alone and vulnerable you were and how frightening the experience was.
All of a sudden, some person on a bike, some guy on a bike...
So the 15 or 16-year-old boy, the 14-year-old child, is now being called a person. A guy, not a boy or a child or a minor, but a person, a guy. No mention in this new video that the previous versions mentioned he was as young as 14, and as old as 16. You are completely leaving that out in your new I was alone, it was unsafe, it was getting dark version of events. You know what, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting too much, let's back this up.
I wanted to share it with the audience. I had been at a park at probably not the safest time. It was still light out, but it was starting to get dark. I was there by myself, and I wanted to get some exercise in before I went home and called it a day. And so I was power walking. Okay, that was my exercise of choice at the time. And while I was power walking, again, I was at this park alone, and all of a sudden, some person on a bike, some guy on a bike, rode right past me, and then he slapped my ass as hard as he could. And I had never experienced or felt what I had felt at that moment, right? Now, it's weird because as I talk about it, it doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but it was a huge deal at the time because I was 19 years old, I was alone at a park.
Thanks for reminding us for the third time.
This person was on a bike and he had just violated me, and then he rode off laughing as loud as he could. And so I felt scared, I felt violated, I didn't know what to do, and I felt defenseless. I slapped my butt and I felt humiliated, and it was just a really terrible, violated feeling that I had.
But now you're also telling us you felt defenseless, and you didn't know what to do. Oh, and don't forget, you were all alone. It was unsafe.
I mean, there was really nothing I could do. And so I felt like tears in my eyes, and I wanted to get out of that situation as soon as possible, go home. And then the worst possible thing happened, right? He decides that he's going to make a circle, basically go around, and then he's going to attempt to do something again. Now, at that point, I thought he's going to try to slap my ass again, but who knows what he was going to do, right?
Who knows what he could have done? He could have stabbed you, shot you, raped you. You were all alone. It was unsafe. It was getting late. You felt defenseless.
Right? He was obviously very amused with himself, and he was going to attempt to assault me in some way again. And so I've never felt as scared as I did in that moment. I felt so much fear.
I thought you were feeling rage.
Because there was a power imbalance there, right? I mean, here I am by myself, and here's this.
And for the fourth time you mention being alone.
Guy on a bike. I can't chase him down. I can't do anything. So if he wants to come after me, I felt like he could pretty much do whatever he wanted and get away with it.
Laying it on a little thick, don't you think, Ana?
And there was no one else around at this park.
For the fifth time, you were alone. Please, Ana, don't forget to remind us every 20 seconds.
Anyway, so he comes around, and then I don't know what came over me. I mean, I've never hurt anyone in my life, right? I'm very anti-violence. I'm not the kind of person who resorts to hitting someone. But as he came by me and I can see him, or the shadow of his bike in my periphery, I was like, I need to do something because I can't run away. This guy's on a bike. There's no way I'm going to get out of this situation.
You were helpless. There was no getting away. He had a bike. You were powerless. He could do anything. You were all alone. You feared for your life. You did what had to be done.
So I immediately thought that I need to defend myself. So as he rode right next to me, I kicked him off his bike. And then when I kicked him off his bike, I really freaked out because I'm like, oh my God, he can get up and beat the shit out of me. Enraged. I can't explain the rage inside me. And I just kept kicking him. He's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't you ever do that to a woman again. So I started kicking him. And, I obviously caused some damage. I mean, I don't know what I did. I don't know if I broke any bones or whatever, but I just kept kicking him in an effort to defend myself and then get the hell out of there. Now,
and most importantly,
don't you ever do that to a woman again.
Yeah, so here we have two different sounding stories. The first two times you told it, you were in a bad mood. This 14, 15, 16-year-old minor slapped your ass. You were raging, just furious, raging, couldn't stop kicking his ribs, even as he apologized as a way of begging you to stop. You couldn't stop, you were so angry, you were raging. How dare he do this to a woman? Don't you ever do this to a woman again? Point being, the first two times you told this story, you were in a bad mood, and it was all about the uncharacteristic rage. And those were the two incarnations of the story that MRAs were responding to. For you to go and make this new version up, retelling it in a way that completely removed your bad mood, the rage on this 14 to 16-year-old boy for humiliating and harassing you, and instead we get what is basically, it was dark and stormy, the sun was going down, night was coming up quick, I was all alone, suddenly the hissing of bike tires crept up on me, I froze in my tracks, and suddenly the pain of the brutal slap across my body sent me writhing in pain. A hellish man on a bike hit my ass, violating me. I was terrified. He looked at me with eyes of fire as he cackled maniacally. I was hurt, scared, vulnerable, I felt violated, powerless, I was so alone. And then, He circled around, he was coming back for me. Oh God, what will I do? What can I do? I felt him bearing down on me. I was all alone, so alone, all by myself. I felt him coming up on me. He was relentless like a predator. I felt his gaze like lasers burning through me. Oh God, the horror, the terror. I just wanted to go home. I just wanted this to be over. And I panicked. I did what I had to do. I went blank, as the adrenaline rushed through, and I kicked him, fighting for my life. And you know what's sad, Ana? I'm only slightly exaggerating this version of the story, for you to tell two radically different colored stories, and claim that it's this new story that is being picked on by overzealous MRAs. For you to claim that, is just downright dishonest. And the thing is, Ana, the first two times you told the story, when your motivation was all about the rage, you know what, I get it, Ana. I'm not saying you did good. I'm not saying you did wrong. I'm saying I get it. He had no right to put his hands on you, and he was circling around and was going to do it again, and you have a right to defend yourself, even if he is underage. And sure, you didn't need to kick him that much when he was on the ground, after you knocked him off the bike, maybe breaking a rib, but, adrenaline and stuff, you were a non-violent woman placed in a situation where you, like all humans, hit their breaking point and snapped. I get it, Ana. Although, given that you mentioned he was as young as 14 years old, you purely raged on this motherfucker, kicking him relentlessly for quite some time as he apologized, begging you to stop, but you couldn't stop raging on him, and he better learn his lesson to never do this to a woman again. I can see why some MRAs might have gotten a little pissed and be like beating the shit out of a 14-year-old kid and teaching him some respect for women. Not cool. I see how some MRAs might not have liked that, so I see both sides to this story. But where you fucked up was your new dramatic retelling of the story, removing all references to anger, rage, and really laying it on thick with the powerlessness, the fear, the vulnerability, transforming it from the original story about rage, to the new version about fear and self-defense, completely omitting that he was a minor, and then on top of that, blasting MRAs who called you out for the first incarnation of the story, thereby making MRAs look shallow and petty. Like a poor little girl can't even defend herself without these overzealous MRA freaks getting on her case. That, Ana, is where you really fucked up. And you know what gets me? We have seen time and time again, women commit domestic violence, even murder, out of what was most likely anger and jealousy. But then once they get in court, here come the waterworks, here come the tears, and the years and years of silent abuse she endured. Oh, how she's just an innocent victim. And then she walks free as a bird. I want everyone to watch her entire retelling of the story, uninterrupted on her own channel, and her statement about some of the MRA fanatics. I'll link it, and I want you to watch how we went from a story of rage, to a story of self-defense, without really even changing the actions of the story, as much as just the language that changed, to repaint the details, because I want everyone to know just how easy it is for a woman to commit violence against men, and play the victim when someone holds them accountable.
But a number of MRA guys are like, how dare you beat the shit out of that guy? Who are you? I mean, what about Ray Rice? You're against Ray Rice beating the shit out of his girlfriend or fiance. How are you gonna fucking compare me to Ray Rice?
Yeah, I know. How dare people compare the two incidents? Ray Rice was slapped in the elevator, reflexively shoved her away. She immediately charged at him. He instantly punched the charging woman once. She went out like a light, the whole thing taking less than 2 full seconds. He picked her up and carried her out of the elevator. His one punch kinda looked more like reflex than anger. The moment she hits the floor, you can see his body language change into a sort of oh shit, what did I just do? Oh my god, she's not moving. Really, it looked like a reflexive move rather than a rage-induced decision. I mean really, you kicked the shit out of a teenage boy, and would not stop kicking him even as he apologized and begged you to stop. I'm honestly more sympathetic to a person who throws one punch only, than the person who won't stop attacking, even when their victim is begging and pleading.
Right, so to compare that situation to Ray Rice is egregious to say the least. If you're making the case that Ray Rice was unable to kind of ward off his wife until authorities were called or something, then you're basically calling Ray Rice a massive pussy.
Yeah, that massive pussy should just learn to take it like a real man.
Like, don't you ever do that to a woman again.